everybody. Welcome back to Sacred Health. I'm Carolyn, and today we get to talk to Zoe Borntrager, life
Hi.
coach for women. So, Zoe is a life coach for women who specializes in self-worth, fulfillment, and building healthy boundaries. She describes herself as the straightforward friend who will tell you what you need to hear, but with love. And her coaching style is rooted in authenticity, practical advice, and actionable steps so you can really thrive. She's also the host of the Self-Worth Club podcast, which just celebrated its first birthday. So happy birthday to your podcast.
Thank you, and thanks
You're
for the
welcome.
introduction. I'm so excited to be here today and chat with you about life purpose. I think it's a huge, huge topic that's overlooked sometimes and
Mhm.
misunderstood.
Definitely, yes. And I think, or at least for me, it was something that it was like it got glossed over like as I grew up. Like I just didn't come to terms with even like beginning to think of what that would be. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say on this topic.
Yeah, it can feel like super elusive, I think, for a lot of people. Like they feel like everyone else has it, and it's like, why can't I find it? Like, what is this thing? And it feels just like so far out of reach most of the time, I think.
Mhm. Yes, definitely. Well, I guess first I wanted to get started with just hearing more of your story. What got you started on personal development in general,
Ooh,
and what made you want to become a coach?
yeah. Okay, so I'd say the beginning of my personal development journey really started around COVID. So like 4-ish years ago
Hmm.
was when I got like deep into it. I had always been someone who was like very into taking care of my body and my mental health. But I'd say when it came to the mental health aspect, I didn't really have that many tools growing up, you know? I didn't have the resources. I didn't really know like what to look into or how to like create those coping mechanisms and stuff like that that were healthy. And so that's why I say it really started 4 years ago because when COVID came, I had just recently started an online business, and that was in network marketing, something that is very dicey of a subject. And it's another thing that I added to my list that I thought I'd never do, and then realized I misjudged, and then actually did and loved
Hmm.
for a little bit. And there are a ton of things like that that happened throughout my life, and I'm sure you can relate. Things that maybe you were like, oh, no way. And then you really like figure it out and you're like,
Hmm.
wait a minute, I was wrong.
Yeah.
So I got into that, and I was working at a bakery at the same time. And like for so long in my life, I planned to be a bakery owner. I wanted to open a bakery, make pastries, and just do that. And so I almost went straight to culinary school, but I got talked into going to business school. And so I went to business school and then I worked in bakeries for a while. And then while I was at the last one I worked at in 2020, I came across a network marketing opportunity and I was like, oh, being a business owner right now versus like 5, 10 years in the future with the bakery, sign me up. I had always had that like entrepreneurial spirit. And so I was just so excited that I could like make something happen right then and there,
Hmm.
right? I mean, we all want things to happen like fast.
Yeah.
So thinking that it could, I was like, I have to jump on it. And so I met a really good friend of mine who became a bridesmaid and everything, and she got me into it. And really, like, that launched my personal development because what I found there was a group of women who wanted to grow at lightning speed as well, who wanted to create an online business, and even more than that, just like grow in their own personal ways.
Hmm.
And so having that community was huge. And you can find that in so many different ways, but I found it there. And then when COVID happened and really got going, I got laid off from the bakery. So I really only had the business now. And so I threw myself even more into it than I had before. And it really skyrocketed my growth and my self-worth. Um, I was working like a maniac. And because we had nothing else to do in COVID, right? Nothing else to do. And so I was working like crazy. I was working out like crazy. I was listening to audiobooks nonstop and podcasts and all the things, and I was just so excited about it. And that general, like, pure excitement was everything when it came to my personal development, because if you're excited about learning and growing, like, you can do so much so fast. Um, and so, yeah, it really became like the perfect combination of having this great community, having so much extra time to develop my self-worth and really grow that. And so that is what launched it. And it really also unlocked my passion for coaching women. So when you're in network marketing, it largely is women based, and it has to do usually with selling a product. But even more than that, I like had to teach women how to be confident in themselves, how to show up online, how to get over their limiting beliefs. And so I got deep into that aspect of it. It wasn't the sales that I loved.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah.
women. And so the deeper I went into that and the more people I got to touch and help grow and see them really like blossom and find their confidence and like just really like learn more about themselves, the more that was like lighting me up and fueling me. And so naturally, like I kind of fell out of the sales part of it and leaned into coaching. And so about a year and a half ago, I really stopped with the sales, stopped with network marketing, and just leaned into coaching because that's really where my passion was.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it just grew from there. It was a really weird like entry into it, but like I said, it just like was such a great time, and I really learned a lot about myself in that time.
Wow, that's a great story. And I think, yeah, COVID really sparked so much for people because just it was like everything changed really fast. And like for you, you got laid off, a lot of people lost work and just or their schedule just had to like shift drastically. Which kind of gives you that space to do things you probably wouldn't have tried during, in your regular like life or regular
Life.
schedule that you're used to.
Yeah, it was a very unique time. I mean, it
Hmm.
really, for so many people, like you said, it's like you normally don't have this much time. You're normally at a job that now all of a sudden you're not at. Like, what do you
Hmm.
fill your time with? And so
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people either chose to do nothing and sulk in it, or
Mhm.
they took the path I did where they really just were like, I need to do something. I need to make this like, I need to make shifts. I need to grow. Like I need to utilize this time. Otherwise you will end up just like sulking in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've felt both of those things at different times in my life, so I completely get it. Yeah. So how would you describe the concept of self-discovery and why is that important to you to share since you're coaching women now? Like, why would you want to speak on that?
Yeah. Okay, so I think of self-discovery as like imagine having a mirror that not only reflects what you look like on the outside, but also it shows you your inner thoughts, your desires, your aspirations. That's the power of self-reflection and self-awareness is really like getting down to the nitty-gritty of like what makes you you, how you were programmed growing up, which is something a lot of people don't look into. They just kind of think like, oh, that's me, this is just something I do, this is something that bothers me, but they don't stop to think why. And self-awareness and self-discovery is so huge in finding your passions and unlocking that purpose that everyone wants to find. Like we were saying, it's like
Hmm.
floating around out there or something.
Yeah.
But really it's you. Like if you have the um want, like the will, the desire to have self-awareness and to like really discover what makes you you, then you know your possibilities, like what you can achieve is so limitless. And so I love that topic, and it's so far, right? It expands so far,
Yeah.
but being able to help people find out those things about themselves that have been kind of like locked away and they don't really like look at or know about is so empowering for them and also me.
Yeah.
While I help other people do that, I discover more and more about myself too. And it's a really cool thing.
It's like, yeah, like a cycle of sorts.
Yeah, it's just its own thing. It's so rewarding in so many different ways. But especially for that person that I get to help like discover those things about them because
Mhm.
it just really helps you find fulfillment in every single day, which is something I didn't used to have. I used to feel like so caught up in everyday life and on the hamster wheel. And I remember, especially when I was working at that last bakery, like I was just exhausted. I had to get up at 4 a.m. to be at work by 5 a.m. And for the first like hour, I would literally just like sit there and chop vegetables. I was a pastry cook, but I would sit there and chop vegetables for like salads and soups and stuff like that
Mhm.
for literally an hour at 5 a.m. No one's talking. It's like pitch black in there. And I do want to tell a story really quick, actually.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
a pivotal moment for me with this bakery. And it's that, like I said, every day I'm sitting there staring at that wall. I usually have headphones in or one headphone in because no one's talking at 5 a.m. There's a few people in there, but like no one
Mhm.
wants to speak at that time in the morning. So, yes, after COVID. After COVID, after I went through that huge like personal development phase, I came back and like I said, I'm so into audiobooks. So I would go in there every morning with one AirPod in, and you couldn't really see it, with a hat on and my hair and everything. And I'd put my phone in this like big quart container on the counter, and I would listen to my audiobook. And at the time, I was listening to Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone. And that book, like, just it hypes you up. It just hypes you up. And that's what I needed at 5 a.m., right? So I would go to work listening to motivational videos, and then I would be listening to my audiobook in my headphones as I chopped vegetables. And it really allowed me to feel like I was like growing while I was almost on pause at the bakery.
Mhm.
And I had been doing this for like a week after coming back from COVID. And one day Chef walks by and my phone's not locked and it's like in that quart container sitting on the counter. So it catches his eye and he stops and he's like, "Are you like watching a show or something? What's happening?" And I'm like, so again, so hyped. I turn to him, I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh my God, no, I'm listening to a book, blah, blah, blah. It's Grant Cardone. Have you heard of him?" Like, I'm just like so jazzed. And he's like, "No," and just kind of like moves on. And I'm like, whatever, okay, press play again and go back to what I'm doing. Well, like 10 minutes later, he stops me again and he's like, "Listen, I would appreciate it if in the future we didn't listen to audiobooks or like watch shows or do anything like that while we're working." And I was like, "Okay." And I turned around and immediately cried. Immediately, like, was just so frustrated and just feeling like I had found this thing that made it enjoyable and made me feel like I was still growing and developing while literally staring at a blank wall at 5 a.m. chopping
Mhm.
vegetables. You didn't even know it was happening for weeks, and then you're gonna tell me that it can't happen? I went home that night and I told my husband, I was like, "I have to leave, like immediately, immediately." And I put in a month's notice, like the next week.
Yeah. Wow. And that's so it speaks to how powerful like a growth journey is because once you're in it and you're so like invested and you feel the reward of like learning these things and implementing them, like if somebody shuts you down, you're like what the like no, like stop, like why? Especially when it's not affecting your work ethic and your performance. Because it's one thing if you're like there's people like trying to, customers like talking to you
Right.
or whatever, like, but if it's 5 in the morning and you're just chopping vegetables, like, why would that be an issue?
Exactly. And honestly, when you think about it, it almost can be like such a larger thing to where and I'm gonna use it as kind of like a metaphor. Like in general, when you're growing and like people see you doing really well and like say I'm like I said, super hype, super happy at 5 a.m. to talk about this like big life thing and this like audiobook I'm listening to, and then he's miserable in
Mhm.
his role and like he's drained and all this stuff and he gets met with that energy. some people cannot handle that, so then they have to shut you down. And this can be
Hmm.
negative comments on your post. This can be friends or family members like, don't know if I like this new you. It's because it's triggering them in some way.
Dude,
It's
that's so true. I've been there. I've literally been on both sides of that where like I'm a bitch, like, right? I'm just like not in a place to receive any like of that.
Yeah,
And then I shut it down. And then there's times where I'm on the other side, I'm like so excited and about whatever. And then it gets shut down to me. And then I'm like, come on, like stop. It's a real thing to be triggered by that.
right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it allows for so much self-reflection,
Hmm.
which is so important because like when you are triggered in those moments by someone else's like excitement or growth or success, it tells you a lot about yourself and your programming and stuff like that, which all goes back to the self-awareness and why it's so important.
Hmm. Yeah, and it takes, I think, a lot of maturity on someone's part to realize, okay, that's how you received that and like processed it. You ended up projecting something outward to somebody else because you didn't have the tools to like handle what was happening.
Right. And a lot of the times you don't want to admit that. You're just like
Hmm.
almost in denial about it for a while, until it continues to come up. And then you can really be like, wait, is this me? Is this a me problem?
Yeah.
Like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Because there was like, yeah, I'm just like thinking back on my own life where I had many years of being like blaming and projecting and not looking inward, and then like the shift of that, realizing like, oh, I contribute to these things too. Like it's so wild how someone can just go from like victim mentality, blaming, like no self responsibility,
Mhm.
and then slowly like realize, oh, that's not really how things work at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's your own like view of things. You have
Hmm.
lenses that no one else has on. And when you realize it, it can be really wild. And everyone goes through that, right? Like, I don't want anyone listening to think that like there's something wrong if you have those moments of feeling like envious or jealous or frustrated by someone else's growth or like what they're putting out there. Like everyone goes through it. And it's funny I mentioned it being like self discovery being like a mirror because there is that concept of like other people are mirrors for you, right? And like
Hmm.
I was saying,
Yeah.
like he maybe with that chef, like he saw in me just that excitement for life and for growth and everything that like he had, but wasn't like giving any life to. And so that really triggered him and he had to shut down what I was doing, even though it wasn't affecting anyone and no one knew it was happening.
Hmm.
And I feel like that happens with us so often. And so yeah, it's really interesting when you do become aware of it to be able to sit there and be like, why do I feel this way? What are they like showing me about myself that I wish I was giving more energy to?
Yeah. And this is something that's coming up a lot in my personal life, and like people around me just kind of having those like midlife crisis type moments of like realizing, oh, I'm not fulfilled right now. And that can be really jarring and scary and like overwhelming to kind of coast through and then like realize, oh crap, like this is not in alignment with what I want.
Yeah. Oh,
And
it's so scary. I mean, I've been through that a few different times. Like I was saying with the bakery thing, it's like
mhm,
everyone thought that was my forever career because I'd been saying since high school, early high school, I'm going to open a bakery. I'm going to study pastry. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I did most of it. I went to business school. I went to pastry school. I worked in a bunch of bakeries. I managed bakeries. And then all of a sudden, I quit to run an online hair care business.
mhm,
Like, I had so many people who were like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is not right. This is not right.
mhm,
And even me, I'm like, this is scary as hell. Like, should I be doing this? It is kind of off the path and you start to question yourself. But then I always had to bring myself back to my intuition and knowing that like it's okay if the plan changes. you're always evolving. Your plan should be always evolving. Like just because you decided you wanted to do something and you shift the plan, even if it's for a little while, like in no way is pivoting a failure. And that can be really hard to understand as well
Mhm.
throughout your growth journey.
Oh, for sure. And this reminded me of something too, like you know how in high school at the end of, senior year, junior year of high school, college starts coming up, and at least like for me and where I grew up and like my what I'm used to and the people I knew, it was very much like you have to go to college. You
Yeah.
have to. Like that's just what people do. And you can't take time to figure out what you want. You need to just magically know what you want to do for the rest of your life at 18 years old.
Yeah.
And
And if
it's
you take a
like,
break, you'll never go back.
yeah, yeah, like you can't do the gap year or anything. And it's like,
Yeah.
how the hell is an 18-year-old? I mean, I should say some 18-year-olds do know what they want for their life purpose. Like they got it. But for me, I was like, I have no idea. And it's so scary to be like told from different people, like you have to take this path and you have to know what's going on when you don't feel so sure of yourself.
Right. I know it's a really wild thing to throw people into at like that age. Like
Mhm.
at 18, you do feel like really grown and like you've been through, you know,
Yeah.
you have in ways, but like you said, like expecting someone to know at that young of an age what they want to do for the rest of their life and then like commit and continue down that path is just not fair and not realistic in any way.
Mm-mm.
Like you
No.
don't know fully who you are or want to be or all the things you want to unlearn or learn by that age. Like you just don't
Yeah.
have a lot of awareness typically.
Yeah, I know I didn't. So it's like now, it's all I'm going through it now as an adult, which I guess it's like easier and more difficult,
Yeah.
because it's there's always that tendency to like look back on your life and be like, oh, I didn't do these things because I missed all this time, 'cause my headspace was not there or whatever situations happened. But like you can't dwell on stuff like that.
No, and everyone has their own timeline, and it's like, you get caught up sometimes looking at other people's stories, like, oh, they figured it out at 22 to have this massive online business, or people who started podcasting in the beginning. I'm like, dang, I wish I didn't start a year ago. I wish I started 5 years ago. But it's like, it's always going to be like that. And it's funny, like, even thinking, like, I'm 27, about to be 28 this summer. And, I have the same thoughts like, "Ah, I wish I started this earlier. If only I had a couple years like up on this. I could have got ahead of XYZ, but it's like people are making it happen right now. People who start literally like a few months ago are making it happen and will succeed in what we want to succeed in. And so like the timeline really doesn't matter. And you have people who are like 45, 50 years old who like will come to me and say, I wish at 27 I knew what you do. I wish at 27 I had started all these things. And I'm like, it just
Mhm.
puts it into another perspective where it's like, all right, I'm not behind. Like, I'm on my own timeline. And there's always going to be some part of you that wishes you started earlier, but at least you're doing it now. Like, if
Yeah.
you have that thought of, I wish I started earlier and you're not taking action, why? There's only right now. Like literally the only time you currently have, the only time that really exists is this moment that we're currently in. So if you're not doing something now, when are you going to do it? Next year and then you're going to wish you started last year? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, what would you say to someone who struggles with the action steps, like, okay, I have these thoughts of like, I want to explore this or try this, but like you were saying, kind of push it off or like struggle with actually doing something. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, like how do you just take action when you don't know where to
Hmm.
start in the first place?
Yeah.
Honestly, like it really depends on what you want to do, but I think with anything new that you want to take action on, working backwards can be really helpful. Like if you're looking at big picture, like I don't know, big picture, I want to, what's a big like career or something you can think of? Like,
I mean, I guess even like for you, how you wanted to own your own bakery like
yeah,
that.
So like with that, I thought, okay, I want to open a bakery, so I need to learn more about pastry. So I've got to go to pastry school. I need to gain experience because I've never worked in one. And this is me at like 15 years old.
Mhm.
Gain experience because I've never worked in one. And so I need to work in some bakeries, probably manage some. I want to see how everything works. And then I was like, oh, probably should go to business school, learn how to run a business in the first place. And so I kind of like worked backwards from there of like, what do I need to do first? And that's what brought me to let's go to business school. And then right after I graduated from business school, I worked in a bakery for a little bit and I talked them into letting me work in the kitchen a couple days since I had no experience.
Mhm.
Uh, Work in the bakery a couple days and then like manage front of house for the rest of it, like the rest of my like work days during that week.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot by like watching people doing it, but then also like getting hands-on experience in the bakery was really important. And at first, like even interviewing for that job as a manager, and wanting to be in back of house, like I had a lot of questions like, oh, you've never had the position before, like how can you do this, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, the most I can do is go to school for managing a business. So like you've got to give me the opportunity at some point, right? Um,
Yeah.
with anything new you do, like working backwards is really helpful. Just like, what are the components that someone usually has to be successful in this area? And honestly, just Google it. If you want to be a marine biologist, Google how do you become a marine biologist? If you want to open up an online boutique, steps to opening an online boutique. I bet you're going to find 30 blogs of someone who has one that
Mhm.
listed out everything they did. And you can kind of like combine and like overlap them and see like what's the general consensus here. And then even like now, there are people who want to be mentors and coaches for literally everything out there. You can find someone to teach you
Mhm.
how to do anything that they did already, that they have experience in. And that is such a cool thing. Like with all of the resources we have at our fingertips at this moment, like if you're not taking action on something you want to be doing, like you have no excuses. All you have to do is literally Google it. You can find podcasts, you
Mhm.
can find books, you can find coaches, you can find blogs. So it's like you just have to start somewhere, and sometimes the simplest action is what gets you rolling. And I know it's so easy to feel overwhelmed, right? Like starting something new is scary as hell. You think about like, how am I gonna have the time for this, or will I be good at it? There's so many what if questions,
Mhm.
but what if it all works out? What if you're really good at it? What if you learn to be really good at it? Because you can learn to do anything. And that's a whole nother thing is like talent versus like learned skill.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like just start simple, just freaking Google it and you'll figure it
Mhm.
out. Like it doesn't have to be so hard. We want to make everything so complicated and so hard, but it's not.
That's so true. I've been there, man. Like I have a tendency to like get to feel overwhelmed so quickly for no reason. Like for things that aren't necessarily even like stressful. Like if I'm not thinking through it from a like a cool, calm, collected headspace, I sometimes I can just like freak out and get stressed. But like you said, just simplifying it and just starting with like a tiny step, that's all you need really. And then you kind of realize, oh, this isn't so stressful.
Right. Once you get the ball rolling, it's so helpful. And like anytime you
Mhm.
feel overwhelmed, okay, you're maybe just focusing on too big of a step. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I need to do this huge thing. Like here's my goal of what, like say getting the podcast to 10,000 downloads or listens. And it's like, that's a huge thing. You can't just have that as the goal. Like, what do you need to do that? Oh, my goal now is to record the next 3 episodes, make 5 shorts out of every episode and put them out on XYZ platform. Like,
Mhm.
break it down into little pieces. And it's like, then the overwhelm can really disappear because you've given yourself actionable steps.
Mhm. So true, man.
Mhm.
That's great. That's so good. I needed that for myself. So now I'm gonna like re-listen to this and take
No,
some notes.
I mean, it's sometimes too. I mean, everyone does. It's like even though you might be like teaching something, I think that's the thing too, is like if you think like I want to do this thing, but I'm not an expert, I'm not a professional. I don't have years of experience. Like, everyone is learning as they go, like everyone needs reinforcement, re-encouragement. Everyone needs to go back to the basics sometimes. Like, just because I teach people to feel fulfilled in their everyday life doesn't mean I'm like that 24/7 and always feel this high level of like
Mm.
excitement and fulfillment. I have down days too. And I think that's really important to know is like we're all human. There's going to be ebbs and flows. You're always gonna have to relearn lessons and reevaluate things, and you can't beat yourself up for that.
Mhm. That's so true, man. Yeah, just remembering that everyone goes through it. Like you said, even the most successful people, celebrities, or, whoever, like we all have moments. So that's very important. Something, okay, because you were talking about, people being miserable in their current state. Like, how would you describe, I guess that is at least the start of it. How would you describe, like, differentiate someone feeling in their purpose and someone who's lacking that? Like, how can someone kind of figure out where they're at
Yeah.
with that?
Well, I think that like when so characteristics of like someone feeling like they're not in their purpose and like unfulfilled. I think typically you feel like almost a nagging feeling of there's more, there's something else, there's something missing. I'm just kind of like going through the motions, you feel like a little bit too like with the flow of things, like you're kind of just like being taken in the wind. I don't know
Mhm.
how to describe it besides that because it's like you just feel like there's something else. And to other people, it could look like everything's great, like your life looks perfect, you've got a great job, you've got husband, kids, house, like all the typical check the box things that people go crazy for. But then inside, you're like, just don't know what it
Yeah.
is, right? Whereas like when you are in your purpose and you're feeling fulfilled and stuff like that, and you have something to like look for every single day and improve on every single day. It's more of like you know your why. That's what it is. I would say is like purpose is like you know your why. And because of that, you're usually willing to take more risks because you have a bigger purpose for that thing. Um, and you have more emotion behind what you're doing when you know why you're doing it because you're like so deeply connected to it. Um, and the people who try to tear you down and get in the way like really can't when you feel like so deeply connected to what you're doing and like there's more purpose in it, because it's so much bigger than any few people or even 100 people who say something to you, and so you're really focused on like learning from your mistakes and learning from setbacks, and it's just like such a like whole feeling, when you know like what you're doing and why you're doing it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like, a word that came to mind was like expansive and light feeling. And then as far as someone who's not feeling fulfilled, there is like a disconnect there, I think. Like, just feeling so, yeah, disconnected. I don't know what other word to say in
No,
life, just in general.
it is that. And it's also like, I think that I have to keep bringing it back to what I said earlier of like, you're not 100% always going to feel great and super fulfilled and all the things. Like, even if you are, like, if you have found like what is your purpose and what feels fulfilling to you and that thing to work for, that why, that doesn't mean that you might not question it sometimes, or you might not feel like, is this working out? Is this really what I'm supposed to do? Like, there still can be that feeling of like, okay, is this right? And sometimes, like for me, it was more of like I just needed to get more specific. Like for a while, I was just coaching like general life coaching. And I was like, let me help you like organize your life and just like figure out what's wrong. And help you find fulfillment. And that's great. And that's still what I do, but it needed to be like tuned in even more. So now I talk a lot about boundary setting, healthy boundaries, and how to draw those lines without hurting people's feelings. I talk about relationships and how they can be strengthened by that and by your own self-awareness. I talk about self-worth, which is really huge, and encompasses so many different things like confidence and self-talk. But knowing those things and getting even more clear on like how I wanted to help people really helped me feel even more fulfilled and add that extra layer to it, to where I'm like, I feel like I know exactly what I need to do next, and there's almost too much to do next. And so sometimes you can be on the right path, but you still have a little bit of that like, oh, what's happening here? Like, where do I go next? Because you have to go deeper.
That's so true. I that resonates with me a lot because it's like I'm doing things, I'm getting on the path that I want, but it's like I need more clarity and like specifics, like you were saying. So what would you say, what are some good questions someone could ask themselves to get more clarity on like on that type of thing?
Mm. So when you're looking for, like, say you're just like completely clueless and don't know what to do, like, what's my purpose? There is actually like a lot of self-discovery that goes into it. I think like the very first thing I usually have people start with is their childhood influences. So, the first thing you could do with this is make a list of like, and I've done this activity a couple of times with myself, and it was very like, oh gosh, like, it was very eye-opening. And it's like you make a list of the influences in your life, people who like watched you grow up, help raise you. Could be your mom and dad, could be them and a sibling, just your mom and a nanny, your aunt, your grandma helped raise you, the neighbor, you were always at their house, like they had a huge impact on you. Like, who were your childhood influences? And this is generally, I mean, I think childhood, like really you're being programmed from 0 to 7. But when I think of like childhood influences, it's more of like 0 to 17. Um, and so you make a list of those people, and then you make a list of their qualities, things that you like think of when you think of them. Like, are they quick to anger? Are they always excited? Do they love what they do? What are just things that you think of when you think of them, and how they act and their personality? And then you go back through the list and you circle all of the things that you feel you took from them, good and bad. And also with that, you make like a star or whatever you want next to words that you purposefully did not take on from them. Things that you saw in these people growing up that you were like, I cannot absorb that. You know what I mean? And there
Hmm.
definitely are some. And that exercise is really cool just to see like where certain traits of yours come from, good and bad, and things that you absolutely were like, I cannot let this happen. And you get to just think a lot deeper about like your experiences growing up and how those could have like shaped your mindset. So yeah, that's a really interesting
Yeah.
lesson to go through. But I have more.
No, that was
um,
great.
because it's just so it is so much when you're finding your purpose and what you're passionate about. But I think like knowing first of all like those things about yourself and where they come from is super helpful, and then after that getting even deeper into your passions and your interests. So this also like it's cool to look at like what did you gravitate towards when you were a child? Like, did you love to read? Did you love to sing, play sports? Were you always hanging out with your friends? Like, were you always drawing? Like, what did you love to do as a child? And those can really help like bring you back to things that you're passionate about. And find things that inspire you, which sometimes like there's nothing more to it. It's just something that's super fun and you love, and it helps you like get creative, and fuels you in that way. And it's not like something that's meant to be a job or anything like that.
Hmm.
But bringing yourself back to that can be super cool because it helps you so much as an adult. Like if you love to color and you start coloring as an adult, like you can get a really cool release from like coming back to things from your childhood. And so really looking at your passions and interests is important. And then past that, your talents and skills. And something really interesting with talents and skills is like a talent is natural, right? Like you're born with it, you're good at it, like just, you're handed a basketball and you're just like crazy good at basketball from a young,
Hmm.
keep doing that. Versus like a skill is you're handed a basketball, you're not very good at it, but you like it, so you continue to grow and learn that skill and you're there every day. And it's like, sometimes I think skills are even more valuable than natural talents because a lot of the time what you see with like natural talent is ego gets in the way. People start to be like, as you grow up and you're really good at this thing, like you tend to have a really big ego around it because you never really had to try super hard versus the person next to you who had to get out and practice every single day and is watching YouTube videos and trying to learn and grow in this thing. Like they have more passion surrounding it because they had
Hmm.
to work for it. And so your purpose doesn't have to be something that you're like innately good at. It can be something that's more of like a skill that you cultivate. And so thinking about that can be really cool as well when you're looking for more like fulfillment and purpose in your life. And then looking into like more aspects of your personality now and like natural inclinations and more of what we were talking about before of like what really triggers me, what lights me up, like those sort of things, and making real note of them is important. And also you could take like personality tests, like the Myers-Briggs test. I took that in
Hmm.
college. That one actually things like that can be really telling for like, what do I just naturally lean towards? Um, so there's like that, there's like the Enneagram test. I think there's like a color personality test. And also getting into like human design and astrology can be really, really cool. I recently had human design astrology business coach look into my chart, and she went really deep into the aspects that like pertain to business and career and fulfillment, purpose, and all that stuff. And it was so uh, affirming because she literally was like, what she said that I like am here to do is currently what I'm doing. And that like meeting with her was part of the reason I got even deeper into self-worth, relationships, boundaries, routines, all of those things. Um, so it can be really cool to look at stuff like that if you're
Yeah.
um and then hmm, coincidences is a really interesting thing to get into when it comes to purpose and fulfillment. And sometimes people call it synchronicities. So this is like, say you're having a conversation with your friend and they bring up something that like you've never talked about before. It's something really random, but then like 20 minutes later, you hear someone talking about it on the radio or like you see a video for it. Like that is a synchronicity that sometimes can mean more. And when you're really like aware of those things, and even you go back through your life and try to pull out like what were the coincidences or synchronicities that like led me down certain paths, it can tell you a lot about where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. Um, I'm a little woo-woo in that aspect of like I do believe like there are like other forces guiding us.
Hmm.
Um, and giving us like signs and signals. And so synchronicities is like a really cool part of that to like look into.
Yeah, those are great. I'm also into that kind of stuff too. So it's fascinating to learn about. I'm just so like I just even if I don't fully understand what's going on, like it's just so interesting to me. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's so
It's
cool.
interesting. And the more you like lean into it and look into it, like the more you feel it, the more you tune into it, and the more you're like, there's something to this.
Hmm.
It's like when my husband and I first started dating, he wasn't really like into astrology or anything like that. I'm like, oh, what's your sign? I'm sending him like little funny gifts about like
Hmm.
Taurus and all that stuff. And then I start looking into like moon sign and rising sign and all that. And he's like, all right, this is enough. But then like as I send more and more, and as the years go on and we talk about it more, now he's like, there's actually something to this, you know, and now I'm getting sent these things. And it's just the more you learn about it, even if at first you're like, nah, that's not real.
Mhm.
There's not much to it. There's a lot to it. So it can be cool just like watching that like develop.
Yeah. Just have an open mind, guys. Just hear it out. And even if it seems a little out there,
It
you
can
could
take
always,
crazy
yeah.
places.
hmm And there's always something you can learn from things, from anything. Like even if you're not, how do I say this? You're not like the whole message isn't like relevant to you, or there's still you could still like learn
Cool.
something and from it.
Yeah, for sure. It's not
hmm
always going to be like fully applicable, but um, you can definitely pull out those little pieces and learn a lot
hmm
from it. I agree.
Definitely. I do want to be mindful of your time here because
Yeah,
we're getting close to an hour, but I do want to give
wow,
you a chance. Yeah, it went by really fast.
that's crazy.
I know. I do want to give people a chance to hear your website, your socials, and your podcast, and anything you want to share if you have like programs you're doing or anything like that.
Thanks for giving me that
Yeah,
opportunity.
of course.
So my Instagram and pretty much all my social media is under Zoe Borntrager. If you just type in Zoe, Zoe Born, you'll find it. So it's an interesting last name. And right now I actually am just finishing like today my 5-day boundary building course, which I'm so excited about. This is something I've been working on for like over a month. It's been like just like brewing, and then I've been outlining and planning and like writing scripts for the videos. And it's such a cool course because it's like, it's not just like a bunch of videos that you watch me talk for like, 20 minutes at a time.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're like that, where it's like you get like one worksheet and then you listen to this person talk for 30 minutes and you're so bored. It's not like that. I've got like a few video lessons, but they're really short, like 5 to 10 minutes. And then I've recorded a few meditations that are like specific to boundary setting, of like me actually giving this guided meditation. There's case studies in there to go through and pull out so you can learn more and of like how to identify boundaries and like where to set them. There's scripts for boundary setting. I even put like wallpapers for your phone in there, and there's like a
Yeah.
whole board activity. Yeah, so it's super cool. There's a lot of different like little pieces to it. And actually I'm doing like a thing where I have I'm still getting a couple more people on the list, but where you can get 50% off in exchange for just giving me your testimonial for it. And so I'm gonna use that to maybe add a couple extra videos and completely relaunch in the future, because this is already so great, but I know with a few tweaks from like people who really want to learn this info, it can be amazing. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's out. I've got the wait list in my Instagram bio, and then I'll have the actual course there once it's like revamped and launched as well. But I'm doing that. I'm doing one-on-one coaching with people. And that's basically nothing I have is cookie cutter. The boundary course is like out there, but there's also a chat where like people can talk to me and stuff like that. So it's not just like you get this thing and like bye.
hmm
And my one-on-one coaching is like super specific. We pick like a focus together, and then we go through the 3 months together. Each week there's a video call, but before that I have people filling out forms of like what went on that week, what do they specifically need from me. They're answering specific questions to where I can spend like, honestly, I spend like hours prepping for my sessions because I want people to get the most out of them. Um, and yeah, that's really what I have going on. And then the podcast Self-Worth Club, yeah, just turned 1, which is so crazy. That right now is just a solo show. It's 10 to 25-minute episodes of me giving super tangible, actionable advice on different topics like raising your self-worth, work-life balance, boundaries, finding more fulfillment and happiness, that sort of thing. Um, and yeah, I'm so grateful that I had the chance to be here and talk on your podcast. It was so much
Yeah.
fun. I don't,
It was a great conversation.
yeah.
It cut out when I said that you were talking and I couldn't hear you at all.
I was like, I can't believe it was an hour,
I
almost an
know.
hour. Insane.
It goes by so fast. Like that's just say like the more present you are in what you're experiencing, like there's no sense of time. It just you're just in it. And
That's so,
that's you know,
I
that's
love
so
it.
amazing. Thank you so much for meeting with me and chatting. I'm so happy.
Of course. Thanks for
And
having me.
so yeah, of course. And everybody, yeah, check out her podcast, Self-Worth Club, her Instagram, I'm like, what's the word? Instagram page, Zoe Borntrager. And if you're watching on YouTube, her little name on the side is her handle right there. So you can see that. Um, yeah, and check out that boundaries course because I know I could use that multiple times in my life. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So yeah, definitely check that out. If you need some assistance with the boundary setting. And definitely, I think part of it for me, especially, was the boundary setting and not feeling guilty
Yes.
about it.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah,
And it's like you don't have to be harsh about it. You're not going to hurt people's feelings. Some people think like you're going to feel super guilty or you're going to hurt these relationships when the reality is you get to strengthen your relationships through boundaries. And that's really what I'm emphasizing in this course too is like, how do you make your relationships stronger? How do you like raise your own self-worth through this process? And that really does help with your overall fulfillment in work and life and relationships, romantic and friendships and family. It's just like so all encompassing to be able to set healthy boundaries and draw lines without feeling guilty.
yeah, definitely. I'm gonna check that out myself for sure. That sounds great. Thank you again, everybody. Yeah, check out her pages and have a great day. We'll see you next time.